Well, hello friends, Coach Bob with you today, and today we're going to be installing some crash bars, or upper engine guards as they call them, for the Triumph Tiger 900 Rally Pro. Now, I want you to know I've already done this, and they came out really good. In fact, honestly, this is the second set of engine bars I've put on there. I'll talk about that later, but anyway, wanted to go through the tools you're going to need and what you're going to need and all that stuff. Triumph had an original engine bar. Let's look at what's on there now that is the new one versus the old one. All right, so these are the newer engine bars, and you can see they have another mount point right back here. Now, the original ones did not have this mount point, and what would happen is when the bike would fall over, these would bend in and damage things in here. And so they added this third mount point, and that, they say, that has resolved the issue. You know, every time I make a video, an airplane flies over. That's just how it is. The other issue that Triumph has is this little subframe piece right here, this little metal piece that you mount to. People are saying that every now and then if they drop it, they'll break that piece there. Is it possible that that'll break? It is. Is it possible that this outer bolt will break? It is. But with a lot of the other kits, it seems like they're breaking in more critical areas. You know, I had a set of Outback Motortech crash bars that I think are absolutely beautiful, and they are solid as rock, not putting them down at all. But they've had some cases where it sheared off some motor mount bolts, and you didn't know they were sheared off, and then it cracked the frame and it became a mess and your warranty wasn't covered and all that. So I opted to go another direction. But I did have a set of Outback Motortech on there, and I'm not putting them down. I think they're rock solid, and I think they've resolved their issue with that bolt. As an old guy, I put it on there for protection, and I just don't want to worry about it. So I decided to go with what the manufacturer makes. Is it the most heavy duty out there? It isn't. But for me, this looked like the greatest middle ground for me to give me the protection that I felt like I needed. So that's the direction I went. So let's talk about the tools you need to do this job. Well, anytime you need a job, you gotta have a torque wrench. So torque wrench number one. You need some Torx sockets, a 45, a 50, and a 55. And you're gonna need an Allen socket of 6 millimeters. And you're gonna need a 12 millimeter and an 8 millimeter socket. The only other thing you're gonna need for this job is a little bit of patience and a small little Torx handheld little kit like this for putting your lights on. And that's it. There's nothing to this job. It's a really simple job, very straightforward. Triumph really, I think, got this thought through real well as far as the upper bars go. As far as the light relocation kit, man, you would think that they were trying to reinvent the rocket ship. The directions were way too complex for something that's 4 screws and a wire. It really is very, very simple. I don't know how they made it seem so complex, but it really isn't. And when you just are doing it, you really don't even have to think about that. But I'll show you how to do it anyway. So let's talk about the part numbers just in case you need it. The crash bar part number is Triumph A9780275. And the light relocation kit, which they're not going to tell you need, but you do, is A9830210. Now, all of the torque specs that I'm going to be showing on here are the ones right out of the Triumph installation sheet. You look down in the description box of this video, there will be a link to triumphinstructions.com to each of these parts so that you can look at these instruction manuals on your own before you get them, so you kind of have an idea of what you're doing before you start. As with anything, I'm going to be putting torque specs up on the screen, but you know what? I've been known to make mistakes, typing errors and that sort of thing. Don't trust me, don't trust anyone. Read the Triumph instructions and make sure you do it right. The last thing you need to do is snap off a bolt or under torque something, and that isn't good either. Do the job right, is all I'm saying. All right, without further ado, well, let's get to installing this upper crash bar, engine protection, whatever you want to call it, and the light relocation kit. All right, so step one says remove the beak, which is pretty simple. There's 1, 2, 3, 4 Allen screws. 4 Allen screws, 5 millimeter Allen. One thing I will tell you, I'm always amazed at how things that go into plastic, how loose they are, and how not everything doesn't fall off of this thing. On this, I just want to make sure I don't drop the fender, or I don't want to drop the big beak there. Not going to fall. Let's see, I think you just work it out. Let's just play with it, comes right out. The lights are behind this bracket here, so I'm going to drop this bracket. I'm going to disconnect the horn, take the horn off, then I will lower the bracket and disconnect the wires. I just think that'll be easier to get to them, so let's do that next. These are 12mm sockets. They're snug, but nothing crazy. There we go. All right, black is on the left. I will remember that, and purple is on the right. All right. Now the center piece holds that horn on, so I don't want to drop the horn, so I'm just gonna, there again, this stuff is amazing. Once you get it loose, at least on this bracket here, it feels pretty good. Slides right out. Just gonna take that bolt, drop it through the horn, and just set it to the side. These light connections, which are further back up in here, what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna go ahead and drop this bar, and I'm gonna mess with it that way.
Fans,
hey YouTube.
Bob's out here working on another motorcycle, his Tiger 900. He's putting some weird funky bars on it.
Yeah. So right here are the connectors for these lights. We want to disconnect them here because we want this entire cable for when we reroute them through the new crash bar. All right, you can see that you have plenty of wire to work with here. You press down. I'll show you a better close-up once I get it undone here. There we go. But you can see there's a quick disconnect. There's a plastic piece. And they're quick disconnects. This is what it looks like. There's a plastic piece that sits right there in that gap. You press that in with a flathead screwdriver, very small flathead that I have right here. And you press that in and just pull them right out. The directions have you taken this apart now. Never done this, never seen it done. So I'm just gonna take my time and see how hard it is to take apart. But just assuming that this thing pops on, it doesn't say, it just says remove it. So very easy, this cap. This is the cap that goes over the end. You just have two little lips right there. When you spread those little flanges apart, those end caps will come right off. So you can see it, spread it apart, and it should pop right off. There we go, just like that. Pretty easy. We have a Torx. I don't believe this is going to be crazy tight, so I'm just gonna try to use a little hand tool. If it's tight, I'll go for a bigger machine. Very, very easy. It's got a little blue Loctite on it, so it's snug but not tight. All right, now we're going to have to pull the wire out of here. There's a little rubber grommet here in the end that we'll pull out, because if you don't pull it out, you won't be able to get the end of it out. So there's the left light. I left the cover just hanging on the light. There it is, grommet and the wire. There it is. I'm gonna go ahead and remove this right light as well. Just go ahead and get this out of the way. And just pull the little rubber grommet right there out of the end, because if you don't, the clip will not fit through the hole in the mounting piece. And voila, just like that. All right, so this little bracket here that we took out that had the bar mounted to it and had the horn mounted to it, we're just going to mount this little plastic piece back up in here, pull the wires right back out through the hole. Again, you just want to make sure you don't crimp anything. I always do a double look. They were in before. I'll give you a closer look at that as soon as I get this snugged up, and then we'll hook that horn back up. I can reach in there and fill all the wires with my fingers, nothing's crushed. We've got this taken off the motorcycle, that's all ready to go. We've got this. This is the next thing that goes on. This is a bracket that your actual crash bars are going to attach to. This is going to run up through a subframe. We'll get a closer look at that. It's going to run up through a subframe. A bolt will go all the way through this one, all the way through that one. This bolts on. Right here, this is where the top of the center of the top of those bars will connect to this piece here. There's a rubber grommet that is in two pieces. I took the liberty of installing that. It's just a press fitting, very, very easy. Just slides right in there, and that just keeps you from chafing your wires. That's all right. So we're reaching what I call the point of critical mass, the point of no return. And what I mean by that, if these cables aren't long enough, once you get to the place that I'm telling you you're about to be at, you're gonna have to disassemble everything, and you don't want to get everything together and then all of a sudden go, uh-oh, I'm in trouble. So I'm gonna show you how these lights go on here. Very, very simple. I did one side off camera to make sure that it was all A-okay, and it was. This hole right here, that's what your wire is going to go through. You're gonna use that rubber grommet that was on the other bar. Just slide it all the way to the top, just feed it right through, and it pushes right out of that side. There it is, just like that. Very, very easy, okay? So far, so good, right? So that's how the light's gonna go on. Now let's look at the bracket. So this is the bracket. You simply have this screw that holds the light on, and you have that mounts to the crash bar. That's all there is to it. This is blue Loctite, you know, and it's made by Super Glue. I don't really like it. It doesn't come out blue. It comes out clear. It's a gel. Interesting. Anyway, that's my crybaby session about the Loctite. So pretty simple. This is the front. And it'll be specific. It'll have an R there for right side and an L for left side. Just mount that baby right on there. Make sure it's facing front. You don't want it facing back. The bolts that came off of the old lights, you can see they're exactly the same size. So no big deal on that. Obviously the shiny metal is going to go to the outside. Now I'm going to tell you in the Triumph instructions, you would think this is total rocket science. The way they have it set up, man, it is crazy. All right, solution number one before you get to the problem is make sure you have plenty of wire pulled down. There's extra wire up in there, but you need to have plenty of it pulled down or it won't reach through the bracket. So we're going up to the Tiger right here. This is the subframe right here piece, and we're going to take these two nuts off right there. Now, as with everything, you know, things are kind of hard to get to whenever you're working on a motorcycle. You just learn that if you turn the fork a certain way, again, these are 12s. Once you get them loose, you can get them started. Might be able to get them off by hand. There we go. These were on there, but you know, they weren't like crazy on there. There's no washer, there's just, and it slides right out. They gave us a longer bolt to go through there. So here's the bracket with the grommet. These two wires have to drop through this grommet in order for you to be able to run your fog light relocation kit. So these two wires for the lights are going to drop down through that rubber grommet that we've placed in there. So I'm going to put that in place now. You can see that the lower bolt is going to have to be pulled out because it has to go through both sides. So let's go ahead and do that now. Simply turning the fork so that I have access to it. All right, so that bolt is pulled out. You can see the new one. It's just a little bit longer, not tremendously longer. This is going to go like this right here. Okay, the bottom one's through. We'll just start the nut on it. Again, just turning those forks can give you a little better angle to see things. All right, so the bracket is got the bolts run through. Got our light wires hanging out there. All right, so now we have the bracket securely fastened. We've got all of the wires working. Everything's looking beautiful. We've got our little wires hanging out there at the bottom. Now we need to torque these guys here down. Triumph calls for 30 Newton meters on this. There we go. If you're like me, this is where things get a little unnerving. This is where you're taking off a motor mount bolt. This Torx 50. It's not super tight, but it's always unnerving to me whenever I am pulling a motor mount on anything. This side does not have a spacer. This is the right-hand side. The left-hand side has a spacer. This bolt you take out, you're not going to use this bolt again. You're going to keep it just in case you ever want to go back to what you were doing. So put that to the side. Now this is pretty cool. I'm going to show this to you. This is what Triumph's solution was. So you have what they call a shoulder bolt. Never seen one of these before. Really cool. It's not complicated, but this goes in, and then this goes in on top of it, and this inside of this is threaded to accept that, and that becomes your mounting point. So let's get this bad boy in here. This, if I'm not mistaken, is I think it's a 55. Again, on stuff like this, take your time. You do not want to cross thread your bolt into the engine. You're going directly into the engine casing. You do not want to cross thread. So take your time, let it pull the bolt in Wow, that's just crazy looking. Crazy looking, I'm telling you. So I'm gonna set this baby to 48 Newton meters, and here we go. Again, you're going into an engine block, so you wanna make sure that you are very careful with this stuff. So that is 47.5. Perfect, just like that. That side's done. Let's do the other side. Now the thing you have to look for on this side, behind here are some spacers. So what I'm gonna do first is I'm just gonna loosen it. Man, that just came loose like crazy. Things like that just shock me. All right, so now that that's loose, I'm gonna get a piece of tape. And I'm just gonna put it right there. That way if anything falls, it'll catch it. Now you probably don't deal with the eyesight issues that I do, but I have eyesight issues. And so when I drop things, I often have a hard time finding them. So I've learned little things that I can just do like that will keep me from losing something. Makes all the difference in the world for me. And plus that should hold it in place. And I have my shoulder bolt sitting right here ready to go. I'm just gonna hold my hand under here and hope that none of this moves at all. So far so good. That's out of there. Nothing has moved. I see the spacers in there. We're gonna snug this up with our hand. And now I can simply remove the tape. The spacers are locked in place. I don't have to worry about it. Perfect, there we go. All right, so next up is gonna be get this bad boy in place. So the right side is gonna go on first. You can see that this piece here is gonna wrap around this crash bar here. This sits on top of that shoulder bolt. Washer goes on top, connects it together. This is going to drop into these two holes here. And we are going to get on at it. Okay, now I'm doing this by myself. So what I'm going to do, I've got that just laying in there like that. I'm just going to take a zip tie and I'm going to pull it up through this hole here. And we don't drop it on my fender. Now you may never do stuff like that, but I am a klutz. To this point, no matter what happens, it ain't gonna come crashing down on that. We're gonna align all this on the side just with our eyes here and adjust it at the front. There's nothing to see up here, generally speaking. So all I'm doing at this point, I'm just loosely setting bolts on here. This half round right here, right, little bracket. It's threaded on the other side. Just gonna drop that over the top. And I'm just gonna start a screw with my hand. I'm just simply gonna drop the shoulder bolt in here and just not tight, just placing it in there. So the bar right now can't fall. So you can see what I have here, that's it. I'm gonna cut the zip tie. I'm gonna do this one a little different, just for the heck of it. I'm gonna drop that shoulder bolt in, that bolt in the frame, just for the heck of it. That should work as a fulcrum point there. Put this on. So now is trying to line things up is going to be the challenge on this. This is just one of those things that you work with it and you fight with it. And if you cuss with it, well, that's all on you. I can't help you with that one. So at this point you have bolt started, bolt started, bolt started. Everything's hand tight on both sides. Again, left bar goes under. I've not hooked up my lights yet. We'll do that in a minute. This was probably the easiest installation of crash bars I've ever done in my life. I'm not going to say that it was without any hassle. I think the biggest hassle was just make sure you had enough wire. Everything else has been super straightforward. I don't Loctite the motor mount bolt. Just don't do that. You can do it if you want to. I'm not doing it. I am Loctiting every other bolt though. Again, be careful not to cross thread because it's very easy to do that. Would this be easier with two people? It would be, but it really wasn't that big of a challenge doing it just by myself. Put a little Loctite on it. All right, see if I can get a torque wrench in here. If I can, that would be wonderful. So what I'm gonna do, I'm always double check and make sure I'm doing 20 Newton meters and not 20 feet-pound, because if you get that confused, you are gonna break something, I promise you. There we go, let's do the other side. All right, this bolt right here, 25 Newton meters. 25 on the other side. Now those tiny bolts that we put in right there, they're I think they're 8mm, and those 8mm go in at 14 Newton meters, so pretty lightweight spec on that one. Man, that is just so fragile feeling, even though I know it's not. Okay, crack there. When you get to the light ones, you don't hear a real loud click. It's just a light click. There it was. So the crash bars are done. Now to plug the lights in and see if they're working. Everything's working. Now let's put the beat back on. Nothing to it, right?
Ooh, look at that.
Nice, huh?
Nice. Some more hardware on your bike.
Yeah, pretty cool, huh?
Now if you fall, it lands on that.
Pretty solid, pretty nice, huh?
Very nice.
Very, very pleased.
Like in case I fall.
Not in case you fall. When you fall. Looks really good, man. I'm super pleased.
Yes, it's nice.
It is. I mean, I really didn't expect it to be quite that solid.
More hardware, yeah.
All right, so the installation is complete. Was the installation difficult? No, it was not. The hardest part was, you know, when Triumph put together the directions, they combined the fog relocation kit and the engine protection bars all in one. And so when you're looking at one, it kind of overlaps into the other. Just don't read more into it than there is. The lights are super easy. Don't overthink it. Very, very easy. We'll just go over it real quick and show you one last look. I will have the PDF files down below. I'll have a link to the PDF files for the installation with both of the sets of directions for the engine guard and for the lights. You can look at those, peruse them. I would say familiarize yourself with them before you do the installation. Have your tools pulled together and just do your thing. It really is not difficult. Just be patient. I'm just going to tell you, it was really an easy install. It was a very stress-free installation. There was more stress associated with running the GoPros than there was ever doing the installation. All right, well, there you have it. The beautiful Triumph crash bars. I'm very impressed. Do me a favor until next time. You go out, buy the motorcycle of your dreams, eat right, take care of yourself, and remember, if you're not having fun, you're doing it wrong. Now I'll see you on the road or on the trail real soon.